Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video is an introduction to northern goshawks. Now I've actually done a video on goshawks in the past. It was several years ago. The production values were terrible and I didn't have as much footage to be able to share. And I got some updated thoughts, especially now that northern goshawks and American goshawks are considered a separate species. Before I jump into this though, I'm trying to connect everybody around the world in the falconry community and get ideas being shared, discussions happening, and link people to good information, other channels, other books, other activities, and really keep this sport collaborating and growing. And so I started a new Facebook page recently. It's just Ben Woodruff Falconry. It's just kind of like a group page. I'll put a link to it down below. It's better. People keep trying to get hold of me on my personal page, and I thought this is kind of a better way to kind of get momentum going in place. I can post my videos and share links and stuff, so check that out if you can. But goshawks. Now, there are a lot of birds in the world that have the name goshawk. When I hear the word goshawk, I just picture a big, very large, bluish-gray bird with bars on the chest and blood-red eyes that lives in the northern part of the northern hemisphere and has a rich history in falconry. But again, there's all kinds of goshawks, from like chanting goshawks and really small accipiters the size of a Cooper's hawk throughout Africa and Australasia. You know, there's a lot of species that have the name goshawk attached to them. But really, usually it's said that the word goshawk comes from old European terms from goosehawk, meaning this is the hawk that's big enough to kill a goose and powerful enough, tenacious enough to kill a goose. So this is talking about northern goshawks, and I will include the North American goshawk or the American goshawk and talk a little bit about that difference. If you know my channel, you know that I often go on and romanticize Middle Eastern falconry. And oftentimes when we talk about the origins of falconry, it is often assumed that some version of Middle Eastern falconry, probably with saker falcons, probably hunting bustards, is sort of probably where the origins of falconry came about. The contender for that would be goshawks throughout Siberia and Asia. Goshawks, I'm just going to come out and say it. The goshawk is the perfect bird for falconry. Maybe not for your buddy, maybe not for your best friend, maybe not the best to work with, but it's the perfect falconer bird. We have to understand falconry did not come about as sport. It did not come about for entertainment. It did not come about as a chance for you to have an up-close wildlife experience and get to live with wildlife every day. It had nothing to do with that. It was entirely about getting food. A practical way to get food. And so even though I go on and on about how great certain birds are, like a peregrine falcon for training, hunting, and acquiring food, honestly, the best bird, for kind of two reasons, is a goshawk, a northern goshawk. The best bird, period. Now, number one is because of the bird's abilities, but number two is because of the size range. Northern goshawks hunt prey that really fit our needs. So for example, if I'm going to go, let's say I'm hunting with a kestrel or a merlin and I catch a starling or two or a sparrow or two, that's not really going to feed me. I can eat those things, but it's not filling me up. A goshawk can go after large prey like ducks and pheasants and geese and swans and jackrabbits and partridge and anything large. But in the presence of smaller prey like quail and songbirds and sparrows, things like that throughout history, those could also, if they appeared, a goshawk could still go after and catch those. And they will go and they will hunt all day long. So let's first want to talk a little bit about their abilities and then the different birds themselves, the different goshawks, sort of by region. So a goshawk, first of all, their strengths. Goshawks have probably the highest frame rate. Accipiters have the highest frame rate of any raptor. but goshawks arguably have the fastest, which means they process visual information and have a reaction time, a speed, an agility that's just pretty much unparalleled. They can get up and go and go and go and go and go and make it look easy. A lot of us that hunt goshawks, when we're training them, we don't want a duck or a pheasant to flush too close because we want there to be a challenge, which is ridiculous. Usually falconry is about orchestrating some sort of an advantage. You're holding your bird up on a fist or a T-perch like a Harris hawk or red tail, and you're trying to get as close to the rabbit as possible so there's an advantage. Not with a goshawk. We're like, whatever, billion miles away, go get it. They just have that much ability. And if they have success, they will keep being tenacious in their pursuit of quarry, kill after kill after kill, hunt after hunt after hunt. And that is really good for getting food. For you, for your family, whatever. They used to call them the cook's bird because if you were a cook at an inn, the innkeeper would be like, hey, you got a goshawk, go out in the morning, catch a few ducks, a few rabbits, bring them back in, and that's to cook for everybody staying at the inn. There's that practical. Instead of, going to the market and buying something, just take your goshawk out and go do some hunting in the morning. It's pretty incredible. So that is why I say they're the best falconry bird, meaning the bird for practicing falconry, meaning training a bird to hunt and catch food for you to eat. Now, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you're like, I just want to hunt a merlin on flocks of starlings. Okay, well, that's a better bird for you. But as far as the definition of falconry is a way to get food for yourself and your bird that's really sizable, then a goshawk is perfect. It's cut and dry. It's not about the flair. The flights of a goshawk will take your breath away, but it's not about flair. When you fly a falcon, you have your falcon flying thousands of feet in the air. You flush up something, and it dives down hundreds of miles an hour, hits it, circles back around, carries it to the ground. You're like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. Goshawk is like, okay, great. We got it. Cool. Have a few bites. Let's go get another one. Okay, let's go get another one. Goshawks were replaced by shotguns later in history. That should tell you something. They're that effective. Is that, a shotgun shoots a spray of pellets that are able to take a moving target very easily, very close range, and that's what they do. They're cut and dry. Goshawks are very easy to train because all the instinct is there, but one of the biggest problems, well, let me say two of the biggest problems are you have to be troubleshooting and problem solving the whole time, and you have to direct aggression. So the troubleshooting part, you don't just arrive. It's not like, well, my bird is trained, or I found the perfect weight. No, you're constantly adjusting. I say this in all my videos, but especially with a goshawk, you have to adjust. Are they a little too aggressive towards the lure? Okay, you do the things you need to do to drop the value of the lure. Are they not coming instantaneously to the lure? Okay, we need to put more food association with that lure. Are they acting a little aggressive? Not aggressive. You have to constantly adjust. But if you understand that, they're easy to train. It's very cut and dry. It's just, remember, you're not reaching for a destination. You're just dancing a dance with your goshawk. So this is not a weekend warrior bird. This is a bird that you need to be like, yeah, I'm doing falconry, and every day I'm working with my bird, flying my bird, adjusting with my bird. That's first thing. But if you do it, it's easy. You just got to do it. Okay? This isn't a back burner bird. Second thing is the aggression. Depending on how you train them, especially imprints of any kind can be problematic, especially with accipiters and eagles. If you mistrain an imprint, you got problems. But I'm going to back away from that in this video and just say what I preach. And seriously, I'm thinking about writing a book just on aggression because it's so misunderstood in falconry and in wildlife education and rehab. Aggression is good. You do not want to, nor can you, eradicate aggression with any bird. If you've got this nice, gentle bird, and it's so nice to me, and we work together, and it's so gentle, it is filled with aggression. It's just that aggression has been properly directed. And so it's not manifesting in ways that we think of as negative. And that is so true with an accipiter. Aggression is there to be directed towards quarry. And in the case of an accipiter, most accipiters, especially a goshawk, need to hunt and hunt and hunt and hunt and hunt. So you have to have quarry available. You have to have time and the commitment to actually get them out and pursue that quarry. That's vital, absolutely vital. If you don't, behavioral issues will start to manifest with any goshawk, but especially with an imprint. But even a non-imprint, a goshawk that is like, well, gee, I've got this aggression to fly and direct after quarry, but instead this falconer is just like, here's your food. It's like, ah! You're attacking, got to attack something, and now you're ending up having those aggressive predatory instincts be directed at a glove or a lure or an enclosure or an object in your house. That's not good. It's very easy. Take that aggression, view it as an amazing gift, an amazing blessing from the falconry gods, and direct it properly at quarry, and you're going to have this, this fusion, the most effective, successful hunting you're ever going to have if you do that with a goshawk. A few of the bad things. One thing is they have kind of delicate feathers, especially the tail feathers. There's a rich history of using certain sort of tail guards. So when your bird's not being flown, like when you're traveling, there's different kinds of tail guards. You can look them up. They have been made from all kinds of things, from rawhide to X-ray film material to carbon fiber. You can use them. Some people will even do something, just take like a hair barrette clip and clipping the tail. That can be helpful. Just depends on how you train their bird. But something to be aware of. And by the way, my little secret, if I have a goshawk that does break a feather, you can imp and replace it with a previously molted feather. I don't. I replace it with a Harris hawk feather. Harris hawks are ridiculously bendable. You can just bend them everywhere. Replace it with a Harris feather. It holds up better. Might as well. That's me personally. So be aware of that. Most goshawks don't hood well. Very few of them do. So you have to, now, I have videos that I've made on the difference between hooding versus hood training. You can hood train almost any bird, but some goshawks just take offense to it, and it's better to instead have them travel in a dark box, like we call it a giant hood, or some you can just train to just ride with you unhooded, and they're fine if you train them correctly. Don't be lazy because of this. Don't think, well, it was a little tricky to hood a bird, so it just doesn't like hoods. That's lazy falconry. But that being said, a goshawk is one of the few exceptions. My last several goshawks, I haven't hood trained at all. I've just traveled them in a giant hood box, and it's worked fine. You can have a lot of resentment. Goshawks are not forgiving. Goshawks, if they are upset with you, if you do something wrong, they're going to let you know, and it's going to be bad. So you can't be sloppy. So normally I would say a goshawk is not a good first falconry bird to learn with, because they are not forgiving. But those are the big things. The potential for aggression if you're not hunting them properly or training them right. The fact that their feathers might break. The fact that they can, not want to hood. Are really kind of your biggest issues. And then they're a demanding bird, but they're a high yield. You have to put so much time into them, but they will deliver amazing results for the time you put into them. It's not like I put all this time in the bird and it can't catch anything, it doesn't want to fly. It's like, no. They will hunt and hunt and hunt and fly and fly and fly and give you all this amazing success. So overall, I think the pros outweigh the cons, but you have to take a very honest look at yourself, your life, your experience level, your commitment, and put all that together and say, okay, yeah, goshawks are good birds. Are me and my situation and my current mental capacity up for the challenge of flying a goshawk? If they are not, don't. I have known many a good falconer who is great, knew their stuff, got a goshawk, and 2-3 weeks in is like, I made a mistake. I know how to train this bird, but either I don't have the time right now, or I'm lacking the mental capacity to dedicate the mentality of troubleshooting every day that this bird requires. And they've had to pass the bird on. So don't take a goshawk lightly. Just because Ben Woodruff says they're easy to train and they're the best falconry bird doesn't mean then you should go get one. You have to really take a look at your situation to understand it. Now, let's take a look really quick at some of these different goshawks. Northern goshawk, Accipiter gentilis, meant the goshawks that lived at the northern part of the northern hemisphere. If you look at a globe and you turn and you look at the North Pole as the center, that northern region is where they lived. But since that's multiple different countries with different geographic, topographic, and environmental conditions, it sort of shaped the goshawks over the eons to slightly different forms. So even though we all called those the same species, they were different. For example, some of the eastern Siberian goshawks can be whitish all the way to pure white, which is seemingly to go with a snowy landscape. There are the goshawks of Finland are considered to be the biggest. They have enormous thick bars on the chest, and you look at some of the ones online in Finland and in Russia, and they look like a male golden eagle. They're so big compared to some of the captive bred ones we have here in the States. You have some of the ones like in Czechoslovakia, where as an adult, their colors are way more brown than that of many other these goshawks. Now, all of the goshawks I'm talking about, their first year of life, they're sort of tan and cream and light brown, and I say they kind of look like a leopard or a jaguar. It just kind of has, it's not exactly the same, but that's what they remind me of. And then as an adult, they get the slaty back, and they get the bars on the chest, and their eyes. In the old world goss, they turn yellowish orange. In the new world, they turn blood red. Now, since the time I made my last video on goshawks, then taxonomists have differentiated the northern goshawk of the United States and Canada and Mexico from all the other old world goshawks, which is kind of interesting. They say there's enough difference, there's enough morphologically, difference in range, different in calls, that we're going to consider it a different species instead of a different subspecies. And so now it's called the American goshawk or the North American goshawk. So what is my opinion of all of these? I grew up being an avid flyer and lover of North American goshawks. Love them to death. I still do. Now my view has totally changed. I would always prefer to fly an old world goshawk over a new world goshawk. They are more forgiving. And they're still a goshawk. They're still, these wild, intense hunters. But they're a bit more forgiving. They're a little more, hey man, what's going on, than an American goshawk. So that's just kind of nice for me. They're bigger as well. Finnish goshawks are the biggest, but all of your old world goss are bigger than our North American goshawks, which are kind of dinky. Size doesn't really matter. I can't think of anything a typical person will be going after with a goshawk that they couldn't tackle. So it doesn't really matter. I don't really feel you're gaining that much when it comes to the advantage of size. If you want a big bird, old world goss is the way to go. But again, your choices should be more about what age and what source. I've got other videos going in greater depth to this, but an imprint is a guarantee. Whether you get an imprint from a breeder or an imprint from the wild, then you guarantee have it because you went and got it yourself. There was no if or wondering, am I going to be able to find one? That's the hardest one to train right. And you have to make sure you're social imprinting it instead of food imprinting it. Otherwise, it's going to be incredibly vocal and could be incredibly aggressive if you don't do it just right. The best is probably the best of both worlds is a family bird, which is a goshawk that has been raised by the parents. The parents are in the process of leaving the baby, ditching it out, and the babies they might sleep in the nest at night, but they're just in the grove of the nest. They've been socialized together, but they're right at a very good learning stage that they acclimate very quickly to falconry. That is a very good goshawk to catch and utilize. It would kind of be the same thing in a breeding chamber. If you had a goshawk in a captive bred situation where the parents have raised it to a certain point and are in the process of leaving the young, that would be a good age as well. The passage goshawk is a bird that is less than a year old, but it's fully left its parents' care. It's ranging out. It's had to learn how to hunt for itself. That is an excellent bird to fly because it knows how to hunt. And it'll still train quickly. But the good thing is it'll also probably be very quiet, not a vocal bird. One of the bad things is they can be prone to stress, and those first few weeks are vital. You got to keep their stress down. Otherwise, sometimes they can get a disease called aspergillosis, where that stress level, the asperspores that we're always breathing in, can take hold and can take their life. So, but another problem is you don't know if you're going to find one. There are a lot of passage goshawks out there migrating and hunting, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to track one down. So if you're like, I'm getting a goshawk this year, maybe you're not if you're waiting for passage. Captive bred goshawks are great. Talk to the breeder and make sure they tell you kind of their take on age to take the bird and their recommendations on how to train it. But again, every bird is an individual, and every bird needs constant troubleshooting. You cannot, again, think that you've just achieved the right weight, the right proper training, the right regiment of all that you go through. You're not going to ever reach that destination. It's a non-existent destination. The whole time is, adjust. And I say it, I've said it before, I've said it again, if you ever fly any accipiter, make friends with somebody who has flown that same species, because one of the best things you can have is somebody to call and bounce ideas off of, troubleshoot together. You'll be thinking, you're like, and then they'll talk to you and say, oh yeah, well I see it this way. You're like, oh geez, I didn't even see that. That's one of the best things. You need a fellow troubleshooter when it comes to flying accipiters. But goshawks, again, are very high maintenance, but very high yield in what they bring back to the table, both literally and metaphorically. I cannot praise them enough, and I cannot recommend them enough. But again, do not ever fly a goshawk. First of all, unless you've flown other things, but more importantly, unless you've really taken a look at your life situation and circumstances and mental capacity and know that you're up for it. It's not about how much you want it. It's not about, this is what I really want. It's my dream. This is not that kind of bird. It's practical. Be logical about it. Be practical and logical and look through it and say, here's what I need to do in order to make this happen. Can I make it happen? Yes. Okay. No, don't do it. Get a goshawk later. But that's just kind of a basic going through things with a goshawk. I love them, and if I fly one anytime soon, I'll share some videos, new videos hunting with them. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts, your comments down below. Let me know your experiences flying goshawks and your take. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think a North American goshawk is a superior falconry bird to the old world goss. Let me know what you think about them being separated as a species. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And as always, happy hawking.